You're listening to the Conference Board of Canada's Mental Health and COVID-19 series with Dr. Bill Howatt, Chief of Research, Workplace Productivity.
Hi, Bill Howatt, Mental Health, COVID-19. What a lovely day outside. Beautiful, looking out, blue sky, looks like I have an opportunity to have a walk. Now, what's challenging is that's what I want to do. And sometimes what will happen is when things don't always go my way, I can get somewhat frustrated, potentially. And when people get frustrated, whenever they have a difference between what they want, and that's a sign of stress, sometimes people get frustrated and sometimes people get angry. Now, anger has a bad reputation. Lots of people think anger is the problem. People think, anger is a big issue and people probably shouldn't have anger as an emotion. That's not true. Anger is actually a purposeful emotion, and you need anger. It's something that can help you and protect you. And there'll be times in your life where someone threatens you that anger is good. And anger is seldom the problem. The emotion of anger is not the problem. I worked in my career when I started out when I was young in the Department of Justice working with young offenders. And I used to try to explain to the folks that used to get into some challenges with each other, it's not the anger that was the problem in this situation. It was the fact that your fist hit the person in the mouth. That was the problem. The emotion is not the problem. It's the behavior that becomes the challenge. We confuse the emotion with the behavior. What I'd like to do today is have a conversation to help talk about anger a little bit, to normalize it. And when we do get angry, it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt other people. So let's talk about that for a minute. And let's talk about how anger can sneak up on us and sometimes where we can lose control. There's a biopsychosocial model that happens with tension reduction, and there's usually people who go through, there's a stage of triggers, and there's 5 stages in anger. I'm not going to try to teach you the exact physiology, what happens through that model, but I'm going to give you a mnemonic, and we're going to use anger because it seems I'm getting some nice feedback that these people help them remember these conversations. So with that, what I'm going to talk about with the A is annoyed. You see, anger is a purposeful emotion. It's a one emotion that we actually do with intention. We either want something to stop or we want something to start. And so when we have a difference between what we want and we're frustrated and become annoyed and it starts to bubble up, if we're not aware what's happening, that moves to the N. The N is neuro hijacking. And we hear people talk about fight or flight. The neuro hijacking is very much what Daniel Goleman talked about in emotional intelligence, is that we just, all of a sudden, our physiology goes, we amp ourselves up. And that's a part of the process with anger. Now, when we start to amp up, what you need to understand, we have levels. To make it simple, below this line, I have conscious problem solving. Above this line, I'm just reacting. So when I start to build my tension up and get annoyed, and all of a sudden the switch flips, bang, and we move to the G, we get tense and we have a release. And that can happen fast and sneak up on you if you're not knowing what's going on. And that's what we call the damage stage. That's where you may say things that you don't mean. You might slam something down your hand. You might give a body gesture. And you might actually do something that's not acceptable in our society, is you might strike someone, hurt someone, trap someone, use anger as a way to try to control. Now, what happens is if the other person stays calm, if someone's angry and you don't react, they can only stay up here. Normally a person without any more additional stimuli is about 30 to 90 seconds. When I was taught, I did a lot of work in self-defense when I was working in justice. I was trained in what's called pressure point control and different tactics. And it's interesting, when a person has tension release, they have about 90 seconds. If no stimuli happens, what will happen is they'll start to come back down. You will too. If you're angry, you'll come back down. But what happens is that they almost seem like they re-enter the planet, the stratosphere, and they start to come back to normal and go, oh my God, what did I just do? And in that stage, that's where they can feel embarrassed or shame. And what they're trying to do at that point in time, once you've lost your temper and you come back down, now your brain starts going, oh my God, you just yelled at someone or you screamed at someone. Then your brain's going, okay, how do I fix that? And what happens is because you start to get embarrassed, that's the E, the embarrassed part. That's where you might withdraw. You don't know what to do. And typically what happens within 15, 20 minutes, 40 minutes after, especially as a partner relationship, and once you calm down, you realize probably what you did, you overreacted. And what happens is up here, we don't really have conscious thinking. It's all emotional. It's reaction. It's physiology. Down below, the line is when. So you don't try to talk. Tip, if you have someone angry, you don't try to rationalize with them up here. Let them come down and know that once they start to move towards that part where they're calm, then they have cognitions and cognitive ability, and they can start problem solving. The last is the R. That's repair. See, if you're angry, you can't problem solve when you're angry. There's nothing you can do around your emotions until they get calmer that you can actually become rational and start having conversation. Soft and wise, if you're frustrated, especially in a house, if you're caught with a bunch of people, go to another room, sit down. Before you start repair, sit down. Start having thoughts about how important that other human being is to you. Start saying yourself, I'm frustrated now. I'm angry inside. However, I really care about that person. They're really important to me. I don't want them to think I'm this person. I want them to understand that I care about them, and I actually want good for them, and I don't want harm to them. Now, what's interesting, you're doing this, is so what happened, whatever that frustration was, it will remit itself, and you're getting some clarity. What you want to do is get that frustration, annoyance out of the way. So it's not about their behavior, it's about your behavior, so that you can start to restitute and start to look at how you can create a resolution with them. And repairing anger, one of the big parts about anger is being important is that anger is never excuse, ever an excuse. I spent a long time in forensic psychology. I spent a lot of time on this. Anger is never excuse. You own your anger, because anger is not the problem. It's the behaviors you choose to do. The question is, would you, if it was Hulk Hogan standing there in front of you, a massive human being, would you do the same behavior? It's not what it is with us. It's not a control issue. It's a choice issue. So that's one of the things I will ask you to consider as we have this conversation with you today, is that anger is an emotion it's not a bad emotion. It's okay to be frustrated. However, in this time, it's not okay to be hurting other people. So today's conversation is not meant to be counseling, not meant to be therapy, not meant to be an anger management course. It's just that I believe some people will be challenged with anger by times when they have a difference between what they want. And that's the purpose of this conversation, is to provide some insights and tips. So as I always say, one day at a time, we'll get through this. We're starting to get up to the top of this. The point is that once we get to the top and come back down the other side, I'm going to have lots of thoughts on the other side, because we just understand that we're in the first phase of this. The recovery phase is going to be a whole another challenge for us. We'll get to that. Let's stay safe, though, while we're learning, and get through this one day at a time. All the best. Have a good day. Take care of yourself. Hi, Bill Howatt here. Hopefully you're finding these videos of some value. If you'd like to share these, on the lower right of your video, there's a icon you can click. You can send it through your social media feeds. Join the Conference Board of Canada social media feed so we can keep you up to date. And if you have ideas, suggestions, please leave your comments so we can consider them. And if you have things that you'd like us to speak to, I certainly will try to do all I can to help out. With that, have a wonderful day.